Welcome back to Tech Visa. There's a lot going on in the employer-sponsored space at the moment. Processing times are increasing, lodgement numbers are climbing, and 1st of July 2026 changes are fast approaching.
Correct.
Some interesting stats came across our desk recently that I'd love to share with you guys. And this is around lodgement numbers being the highest they've been since 2019.
Yeah.
Off the flip side of increase in visa applications, that obviously has a negative flow-on effect to processing times. So let's take a deep dive into that. So starting with the skills and demand visa, the core skills pathway, you're looking at between 4 to 6 months processing times. Specialist skills pathway, about 1 to 2 months.
Look, specialist stream, we had a couple recently that were flying through.
Okay.
So within 2 weeks from date of lodgement, we are finding that these applications are getting top priority.
And sticking to the 482 program, let's have a quick look at nomination transfers. So about 2 to 4 months for the core skills stream and 1 to 2 weeks for specialist skills. Is that more or less what we're seeing?
It's about kind of that. With the core skills, what we're seeing is that there is that specific question in the nomination form. If you tick is to facilitate the transfer or change of an employer, that they are sort of being picked up sooner, but 2 to 4 months is what we're seeing. The reason there, I think the government have allowed that 180-day period as part of the 8607 condition relaxation, so people aren't impacted like they were before with the 60 days, where they couldn't start employment without the transfer being approved. So therefore, I think that is less of a concern for any candidates that are in Australia. And again, with the specialist stream, definitely fast. 1 to 1-ish week is what we see.
And then moving on to permanent residency, subclass 186. So direct entry, 12 to 19 months. Temporary resident transition stream, 13 to 19 months.
I think that the reason why is to give people a bit more context is that the 186 program is part of the annual migration planning level, which is capped and planned. Because once the department reaches the annual cap, and last year they reached that cap early June, I want to say, if I recall correctly, where they wrote to kind of industry, said, we've reached the number, we'll still keep going with the nominations, but we can't finalize any more visas, therefore expect a bit of a delay. So there used to be a bit of distinction between the two different streams, the direct entry and the transitional pathway that you touched on, but it's now kind of merging. Around 16 to 18 is what we're seeing. Obviously, if it's a regional location, accredited sponsor, then you're looking at kind of like a 12 to 13.
Moving on to the 1st of July 2026 changes. So there's a couple of things going on here, a few things I want to cover, but one being fee increases. So something that we expect at the start of every financial year is a minor increase across the board to visa application charges. But one thing that came to us as a bit of a shock recently was the 485 visa application charges, they doubled overnight.
Yes, that is a surprising one. I think it shook the industry as a whole, and especially the student visa cohort. The changes got announced beginning of the month, and it came into effect kind of straight away. And then there was a major amount of cohort of people holding student visas at an expiry by the 15th of March. There's a couple of things happening. The department's also, I think, deployed some sort of programming or sort of automated processing for 485 visas. So if it is decision ready, you can expect a decision relatively quickly. We had one recently that was done in 3 business days. Some are saying they're automatically granted at the time of lodgement, but a lot of students relied on having a bit of time on a bridging visa before a grant of that visa, because it's only a 2-year visa if you've done a degree, and then 3 years if you've done a PhD. Which isn't a lot of time for them to kind of progress or plan for the rest of their migration journey in Australia. But having said that, we love that it's efficient. I love that the department's getting through them quickly. Increasing the fee, it could be just an exercise to test if that will shift demand in any way.
Based on past experience, fee increases don't seem to really...
It has never curbed demand, no. They've done this with partner visas a few years back, where it went from 4,000 something to 8,000 something. And the department expected a drop, and they did this again when they changed the 482, so the 457 to the 482, and increased fees significantly, hoping that it would curb demand, but unfortunately it has not. Which is interesting.
Across the board, we can expect about a 4 to 5% increase to visa application charges from the 1st of July moving onward.
Correct.
Just something to keep in mind. It happens every year, but just be aware that this will happen on the 1st of July 2026. Another thing that we thought would curb demand for visa applications were increased salary thresholds. So when they introduced the skills and demand visa, we saw a huge increase to the minimum salary threshold. It did not deter anyone. But on that note, from the 1st of July 2026, we're going to see an increase to minimum salary thresholds for the 482 program. So for the core skills stream, This will increase to $79,499, up from $76,515. And for the specialist skills pathway, the threshold is expected to rise to $146,717, and that's up from $141,210.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember that we did an episode I want to say maybe last year sometime, where the government was saying they want to do multi-year planning. And
yes.
This is one of the multi-year planning results from what they were saying. They said, yes, it went from 53,900, which was that threshold for like close to a decade, to then 70,000. That did shock some of employers.
I mean, creeping up to $80,000 base salary as a minimum salary threshold, it's getting up there.
I mean, look, with the cost of living and everything and the current economy, I think it's fair that, visa holders have the right wage or salary and then be able to then obviously settle and live well in Australia. But yes, it's definitely getting up there.
And then another increase would be to the Fair Work High Income threshold. So it's currently at 183,100. Expect about a rise of 4%.
About there. Has not been announced yet, so we'll wait and see. That normally comes about later in June or the first week of July. Recap what that high income threshold is used for. There's mainly two things it's used for in the migration program. One is to access the age waiver for the 482 to transition towards permanent residency via the 186 visa option. So normally age waiver is needed if you're over the age of 45 as a 482 visa holder wanting to pursue a permanent residency 186 through the support of an employer. The government justification is that those people are senior in sort of their positions or in their careers, might have relocated to Australia in a later part of their life. They still have many years to contribute, but they must attract that salary for them to then be able to obtain permanent residency status. And the second application is for the National Innovation Visa. The department obviously have made that the top echelons of the professions for those that can have access to that program. Therefore, should have the ability to attract that high income, which is currently at that 183, 100, going up 4-ish, 5%.
And then another thing I want to touch on quickly is bridging visa Bs. So we've seen extended visa grant periods. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, Em?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, before when we had bridging visa Bs, it was more based on the duration of the overseas trip. The department used to give it for 3 months, maybe 6 months if there's multiple trips. And then they did the sensible thing where the department indicated if processing time is more than 12 months, then maybe a 12-month visa, 12-month validity of the BVB. So that was for partner visas and some of the 186 program. But what we're seeing now is more of a blanket 3 or 5 year BVB, which is very interesting. It's not happened before. I mean, it could indicate that the department be like, you know what, get one BVB and it's set and forget. You've got travel rights until your substantive visa is finalized. It also can potentially indicate that processing times is going to get longer and not shorter. So we're monitoring that closely. But if you need a BVB reminder, please reach out at least 3 to 4 weeks before traveling. Now within a week or so of lodgement. But there was a period early this month it was taking 4 or 5 weeks, and it's just not what the department have indicated before. They said they used to say don't reach out to us unless it's 3 weeks before travel date, and then we did that and visas weren't coming through. People had to change flights. It's just a lot of headaches. Thanks
for your time, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tech V's. If you did enjoy this, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Chat to you soon.
Bye.